Guys, with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to talk to you about someone so special and so close to my heart. The Switch 2. Obviously. Okay, that might be a bit dramatic, but this thing has now been out for nearly 7 whole months, believe it or not. So there's time to bed into our lives, the hype's worn off, so what's it really like to live with? And that, of course, means I need to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. You're not ugly. It's not you. It's me. Yeah. Anyway, even though that's Nintendo's most capable console, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some Nintendo-shaped problems. Let's talk about it.
The good.
And if we're starting with the good, that of course means starting with the hardware itself. For the first time in years, Nintendo doesn't feel behind. I mean, yeah, their first-party games have always been great, and they've always been able to squeeze every drop of power out of the Switch, for the most part. But it's third-party games where we're really seeing a massive difference. We have stable frame rates, higher resolution, and the dynamic scaling is no longer as aggressive and ugly as it used to be on the Switch 1. Games that would have been borderline or completely unplayable on the Switch 1 are now available and running really well on the Switch 2, and that is a huge win for Switch 2 owners. It's not competing in the console wars, it's not trying to be a PS5 or an Xbox Series, it's its own thing, and it does it really, really well. And it just definitely feels like an acceptable modern baseline for a hybrid console. Next up is the screen, and before you even type it, I know the screen isn't perfect. I came from a Switch OLED, right? So I already had technically a better screen on that than this. There's now an LCD panel, but the screen on this is 120 Hz and the colours are really good, and it's just overall a great screen. And it actually feels like Nintendo are thinking into the future, which is not something they usually do. It's a really great screen, and hopefully before long we'll see people utilise the full capabilities of it, but the fact that it's come with it out of the box is not very Nintendo-like at all, and I will take that as a win. And another huge improvement for this guy is the docked capabilities. Now, admittedly, I'm not much of a dock player. I bought this thing primarily for handheld and it's not touched the dock all that much in its lifetime. But when it does, the 4K upscaling works amazingly. You can actually read the text on the screen and see the UI, and it no longer feels kind of weird to dock your Switch to a 4K 55-inch TV. And this is also great because 4K TVs are one of the only pieces of technology that are actually getting more affordable as time goes on, and this does seem to be the baseline for TVs these days. So if you're a dock player, this must be such a relief because the old one was looking a little bit tired. And finally, one of the great things about this console is Nintendo did the smart thing and kept the form factor, which you can't always guarantee with next-gen Nintendo consoles. Not naming any names. There's just no weirdness, they just took the blueprint from the Switch one that was so successful and did it again. Nice. Sometimes it feels like Nintendo tries to sabotage themselves by reinventing the wheel, but this time they just stuck with what works. Although, mouse mode, does anybody actually use it? Genuine question. I've tried it once just to say, oh, it works. And I've never tried it ever again.
The bad.
Now I'm going to be gentle here because she's in the room with me and I don't want to upset her, but we have to talk about the battery life. I've just raved that this thing has more power, but now that also means more battery drain. And the big games on this thing chew through battery life. Oh my god. And it's kind of weird because I got so used to the Switch 1 battery, especially the OLED, being amazing, but now I don't even take this downstairs without taking my charger with me, let alone leaving the house. So it's still portable, but you do definitely have to account for the extra weight of the battery pack that you will need if you take this anywhere with you. And don't even get me started on sleep mode. Somehow nothing will be running on it. I'll put it in sleep mode, 10 minutes later I turn it back on and it's lost 15%. I wish I was being dramatic. I honestly can't really blame Nintendo entirely for the battery life thing. This is an industry thing. We haven't made advancements in battery technology in years, and they wanted the Switch to be like sleek and nice and all those wonderful things. But of course that comes at the trade-off that the battery life is not amazing and is certainly not as good as the Switch 1. I used to put my Switch 1 in sleep mode all the time and leave it for days. But I'd turn it back on and she would be waiting for me. This one, I turn it back on and she is dead. I only ever use sleep mode now if I know I'm taking a very short break, otherwise it's a no-go. Now I'm going to slightly contradict myself here, bear with me, but it's the screen. I know I just said that the screen is really good, and trust me, I'm not changing my opinion on that. However, the screen is underutilized. It's a 120 Hz screen, and I do not expect this to be able to push 120 frames in most games, but there are some games it definitely could and it doesn't. And with it being 120 Hz, it opens the door for other things, such as 40 frames, such as 90 frames, like the Steam Deck OLED does, and yet no one seems to really be doing it or taking advantage of that. And it'd be so nice to have more customization in these games that are genuinely capable of running things at a higher FPS. Generally, games are just going for quality 30 or performance 60, but why don't we meet in the middle? Or why do we push ourselves? There's so many more options, just do it. I'm going to stop before I start to get semi-heated on that one, but I think a 30 FPS console must have wronged me in my last life because I cannot stand 30 FPS. Ooh! And next up on my list of not so great things is the UI. Now, the UI is not painful to use and it works. If that's your benchmark, it works. It works, it's fast, it's reliable. Look, it's all those things, but it's just boring. Why are my only options to customize the home screen black or white? What? And this one kind of annoys me as well because I feel like Nintendo are genuinely missing out on a business opportunity. Not that I want them to charge me any more money than they already do. However, if they made custom themes and they charge £1, £2, £3, might be cutting it, but you know, a small fee for you to download a theme pack onto your Switch and change how it looks, so many people would do it. I'm honestly just so bored of the black and white themes, and it doesn't at all affect the way I play games, and it doesn't make a single difference, blah blah blah. But when I turn it on and I'm greeted with the same boring home screen every single time, I could just do with them to liven it up a bit. And Nintendo are weird. They're so weird. Why aren't they doing weird things? They do weird things that we don't want, and then they do the weird things that they want, and I'm starting to get a bit ranty, so I'm going to move on.
The ugly. Wee.
I feel like I need to adopt a somber approach for this part. She's listening. Maybe I'll cover her ears. I have a problem with the way that Nintendo have done the pricing with the upgrades and the patches, and I'm just confused. Some of these upgrades you pay for, some of them are the Switch 2 edition, some of them are enhanced, some of them are free. I just genuinely don't know what's going on. It's on a game-by-game basis, the messaging is super unclear, and you just never know how you're going to get to actually unlock the capabilities of this console. Because quite frankly, I find it frustrating to play my Switch 1 games on the Switch 2 with no enhancements, but then I find it even more annoying to try and figure out how to get those enhancements. Whether I get them for free, whether they're paid, whether it's a Switch 2, you need to be plugged into gaming news or looking at it on a game-by-game basis because there is no consistency with this, and it's very confusing. But it's not your fault, baby girl. Don't listen to me. Turn around. And yeah, performance inconsistency. This is a big one. I think this comes from being a PC gamer where I'm just used to having a bit more control over my games, but with the Switch 2, most of the time what you get is what you get, and if it's not very good, it's not very good. Some ports on this thing are absolutely incredible and you're mind boggled and you wondered how they even made it happen. But some of them feel rushed. You can't assume performance. With other consoles, you put the disc in, you download the game, you kind of know what you're going to get out of the box. The Switch 2 is a whole other kettle of fish, especially with Switch 1 games. And I know it takes a lot of dev work to bring these games up to scratch and not every developer wants to do it, but the inconsistency hurts the console. I feel like I need to look at performance reviews before I buy anything just to make sure I'm not going to buy something that looks like a turd. And my final ugly, thank God, I don't think she can take any more, it's just that the Joy-Cons are still having some problems. They're better, and I personally haven't had any problems with them. They've added these kind of ugly and annoying dust shields, but they're doing their job and I haven't had any drift. But that doesn't mean that not everybody is having drift, and there have definitely been some reports of it. So this is kind of still up in the air. Maybe it's not fair to put it in the ugly list, but if this is a problem that's transferred from one generation to the next, this will be a big, messy, ugly problem. So after 7 months, is this thing worth it? Yeah, obviously. It's sick. I mean, I'm a bit biased, but I love it. It's the strongest out-of-the-gate Nintendo hardware that we've had in years, and it actually feels ready for modern games, which is not always guaranteed with Nintendo. Of course, it's still held back by certain things, but nothing is perfect. Just because it has cautious software, confusing decisions, that's a hard one. Confusing decisions and problems that probably should have been solved already. It doesn't mean that this isn't worth buying, and if you loved the original Switch like I did, this is the upgrade that we all wanted. If you expect Nintendo to suddenly change who they are, we'll all be disappointed. They're set in their ways for the good or the bad. Or the ugly. But it certainly hasn't put me off the Switch 2, and I have enjoyed nearly every minute I've spent with this console, and I don't regret buying it at all. But what do you think? If you're a Switch 2 owner, what is your biggest win with the console, and what is your biggest disappointment? Because I'm sure you have a few as well. Or if you've got your Nintendo blind goggles on and you just love everything they produce and they're the best company in the world, and oh my god, I love you Nintendo, please, I love you, I love you, I love you. Because that's a bit of me. I don't know if you can tell. I love Nintendo. Oops.